5 years together and I want to move in, but my boyfriend chooses his friends instead. With my flatmates moving out, am I wrong to be frustrated? TLDR. My boyfriend and I will officially be together for 5 years in a few months. Both of our leases, living with our own friends, end around the same time. My friends are moving out for various reasons, while his might renew their contracts. I am extremely stressed at the thought of living with new strangers again, especially since I relocated from my hometown to be closer to him, making him my nearest person. We have talked about moving in together, but it ends up in an argument. He enjoys living with his friends and feels pressured to move in with me, to tell me what I want to hear, and to be responsible for my happiness. All I am doing is expressing my anxiety about moving out and explaining how this or me exploring travel could be a viable option. There have been times in our relationship when he has prioritized his friends over me, and I am concerned this may happen again. Am I being unreasonable for feeling annoyed that he won't seriously consider it? My boyfriend and I have been together for a few years. We met at university and both lived in typical student apartments. After graduating, I moved to his city because I wanted to leave my previous home. Initially, I stayed with his family before finding an apartment with older roommates. It was a terrible experience. They were really rude and constantly took my food and clothes. I temporarily moved back home, but have since returned to the city and enjoy living in my current apartment, which I have inhabited for a couple of years. I have recently learned that in about 9 to 12 months, my flatmates will all be moving out, which has caused me significant stress. This is particularly sad because I am good friends with all of them, and none had indicated they were planning to leave until now. However, I understand their various reasons. One is moving closer to work, and the other is relocating to live with their partner. I really dislike the idea of moving in with complete strangers again. I have done it for years, and after living with them for a couple of years, I finally have a comfortable and relaxed apartment. I asked my boyfriend for his thoughts on potentially moving in together, since most of my other friends are either living at home or with their own partners. He has been living with his childhood friends for a few years. He expressed uncertainty because his friends are considering renewing their lease for another year, and he feels pressured to agree to my wishes because he knows I have no one else. The timing of my flatmates moving out coincides with the expiration of my boyfriend's tenancy and our 5-year anniversary. We have previously discussed how we are entering a more serious phase of our relationship, which is different from those teenage relationships that last only 1 or 2 years. We have talked about the future, but I am usually the one who brings it up. He states he does not generally think that far ahead, so he is unsure, but he feels secure in our relationship and can envision us moving in together and eventually marrying. Although it is future-oriented anxiety and still several months away, I cannot help but feel stressed about the prospect of finding a new place to live and adjusting to living with people I do not know. The fact that this situation could be avoided, especially since everything aligns well with both of our leases expiring and this being a significant milestone in our relationship, makes it frustrating that he is unwilling to consider it now. I do not want to pressure him into moving in with me. I want it to happen when we are both ready so it can feel less pressured and more exciting. I am not sure I am even ready to move in with him. If my flatmates were not leaving, I would likely prefer to have another year living with friends before taking what feels like a serious step. My boyfriend mentioned that once we move in together, it is hard to go back to living with friends, so he wants to enjoy that experience while he can, which I understand to some extent. I just feel frustrated that I have to wait for his friends to decide whether they are renewing their lease for my boyfriend to then determine if he wants to live with me. This is not the first time I have felt he has prioritized his friends. There have been a few occasions where we made plans, and he called me a few hours before to say his friends suddenly thought of something fun to do, but he was uncertain if it would happen. He often asks me to wait while he checks for updates from his group chat to see if their plans are confirmed. If they are, he might have to cancel our plans. I have discussed this dynamic with my friends before about how it feels as if I always draw the short straw in the competition of me versus his friends. Whether that means being deprived of his free time or experiencing rudeness or negativity from his friends in social settings without him addressing it due to discomfort or fear of conflict. My friends often comment that he really values his friendships, which I understand because they have known each other for around 20 years. However, I also believe that he cannot act as if he is 18 anymore. He is an adult now, and his friends, some of whom are not particularly kind or respectful, one even called me poor once, which felt strange, are not the sole focus of his life. We all grow and evolve beyond just friends, family, and school. We now also have our careers and romantic lives. It often feels as if he and his friends behave like they are still teenagers. I have told him that in 15 years, when we might be married with children, it is unlikely he will still be able to play sports in the park several times a week or for an entire week in the summer. He agrees but insists that we are not at that stage yet, so he intends to enjoy it while he can, which is fair enough. I have discussed traveling for years, but it has yet to happen due to financial constraints. I am unsure whether I should attempt to save money, store my belongings, and go traveling once my lease ends. I have experienced significant bad luck regarding jobs that make me extremely unhappy over the past couple of years, leading to general dissatisfaction with my work life, making it difficult to live here at times. Moving back to my childhood home to save money is not an option for me. I am considering doing a teaching course abroad for a few months, but that still leaves me with the issue of where to live. I would need to secure an arrangement for when I return or find somewhere to stay while searching for a place. My boyfriend is open to traveling with me, but like the moving in situation, this is also uncertain. He states he enjoys his job and living situation and does not want to change that. I completely understand that he is in a different position. He is comfortable and happy, so I do not want to disrupt that for him. However, I am in a different place because I dislike my job, and my living situation is about to change. The point is that I am discussing something that will happen in 9 to 12 months. He has plenty of time left to stay in his apartment, and I am not asking him to drop everything and move in with me next month. I am merely inquiring about the possibility at least. He claims it is too much pressure and feels responsible for my happiness. He does not want me to wait to travel in case he ultimately decides against it. Yet, he also says he is open to it and would love to go, stating he has ideas for it but simply does not know when we will be able to go. Whenever I mention traveling together, he says he is unsure but will think about it and let me know next week. When next week arrives, he often reiterates his uncertainty but reinforces that he would absolutely love to go. I am unsure what to do about any of this, as I have conflicting thoughts regarding my entire flat situation, my desire to travel but fear of going alone due to safety concerns, and the potential that I may move in with my boyfriend without wanting to pressure him. I tend to think ahead and consider the future, and I also experience anxiety, which leads me to want to preemptively solve problems before facing them when they arise. I am trying to sort out or gain some clarity on what to do in the coming months while also navigating yet another disappointing job situation. I have been utterly dissatisfied with my work life for several years. Countless family members, friends, and my current counselor have remarked on the unusual unluckiness I have faced. It feels as if I am cursed. My job experiences have been consistently terrible, ranging from months of applying to over 400 positions without success, repeatedly making it to the final 2 candidates only to lose, finally obtaining a job where my team and manager are notorious for being the worst, to becoming unemployed again and landing another job that is a carbon copy of the previous one. I am aware that this situation contributes to my urgency to implement changes in my life, such as planning travels to have something to look forward to. I am frantically seeking jobs in my current industry and lower-paying positions connected to my hobbies to gain some job satisfaction. I also realize that my expression of these feelings to my boyfriend likely adds to the pressure he feels. He cares about me and sees moving in as a solution, which I do not want. I do not want us moving in together to be framed as a cure for my issues. I just need some thoughts on how to handle all of this. I remain somewhat frustrated with my boyfriend for not considering living together, as it feels like he consistently prioritizes his friends. He mentioned he is open to discussing moving in together again, but this time he insists I cannot express annoyance if his answer is not what I want to hear, that he chooses to live with his friends instead of with me. To begin with, he cannot dictate my feelings or reactions. I will not be overjoyed about needing to find strangers to live with. I am conflicted because it is undoubtedly frustrating to think I will not be living with the person closest to me in this city. I moved here knowing only him, so he is my oldest friend and the person I know best. Not only that, but he is also my boyfriend, and by that time, we will have been together for 5 years, which does not feel like a long time, especially compared to 10 years. I truly love him and want him to be happy. If that means not living with me for another few years, I am okay with it because I am not entirely sure I am ready either. However, I do not want to be in my 30s and still receive vague answers about the future. I have urged him to view it from my perspective, and while he is quite understanding, he still maintains his position while expressing excitement for future plans we might share. I am just frustrated that he will not contemplate living with me when he is fully aware of my situation. Am I the unreasonable one? Story 2. After 7 years of daily talks, I lost my best friend Simon due to my growing anxiety and inability to communicate my needs. I pushed him away, panicked when he pulled back, and now, 3 months later, I took him left alone, wishing I could turn back time. Can friendships survive misunderstandings? I ruined my friendship with my best friend. 7 whole years together, and now it is all gone. I am a 17-year-old female, and he is a 17-year-old male. This post may seem a bit jumbled because that reflects my current mindset. Out of respect for his privacy, I will refer to him as Simon. We have been friends for 7 or perhaps 8 years now, and we practically grew up together. We spoke every day, and I am not even exaggerating, every single day, we communicated. We would always greet each other in the mornings and say goodnight at night. We talked all day and played games. Even when I was at school, I would sneak peeks at my phone just to text him, which always made me feel happy. But I believe that is where the issues began. I started to grow a bit weary of talking around the clock, and it became frustrating for me that I could not break the cycle of our daily conversations. Staring at screens and sitting at a desk all day on my weekends became exhausting, and yet I did not fully understand it at the time. To clarify, I have autism. So, I struggled to comprehend why I felt so irritable, and when I sought advice from adults about feeling perpetually tired and off, they attributed it to my autism. I will admit that my fatigue made me become irritable towards Simon as well. I care for him so much platonically, but at times, his anxious attachment and clinginess made me feel obligated to remain online to please him, even when he did not explicitly ask me to. I struggle with communication, and it will probably be glaringly obvious in this post. I really wanted to express that I no longer wished to talk all day and wanted to take breaks. However, whenever I brought up the idea of breaks, he seemed put off in a way. I do not know. Anytime I expressed this desire, he appeared to agree, but the mood shifted. It seemed like he was worried about something, which made me worry too. I did not want him to think I was withdrawing, but being chronically online felt like I was a pig at a desk all day. In the end, I decided to push through and continue talking all day. We shared so much fun, and I smiled a lot when we played games, so I thought maybe I was just growing up and that my body and mind were out of sorts. He is truly a great friend to me. We have so many memories that we frequently reminisce about and laugh at. I love to smile, and having him, someone who enjoys joking, felt like the perfect friendship for me. He truly was, and I believe I really messed up badly. Simon noticed my irritability at times and would ask if I was okay. I do not know why I always insisted that I was fine. It was not his responsibility to care for me, but at the same time, I felt resentment growing. Why did I feel the need to push through for him when I cared so deeply? Did he feel the same? Was he fighting for this friendship like I was? Those thoughts began to consume my mind. It was as if they lingered in the back of my head. If he seemed off, a little voice would nag. He is pulling away and will not fight as hard as you do. Or, he is only pretending to be your friend because he has nothing else going on. That really bothered me, and when he eventually pulled away, it felt as if those thoughts had proven true. I began to perceive Simon differently as well. I cherished him as my best friend and valued our bond, but sometimes it felt like I could not express what I wanted or communicate without feeling guilty. Anytime I considered doing so, I worried it would hurt him or ruin something, or worse, make him think I wanted our friendship to end. Simon is an anxious person. If you do not talk to him for several hours and reply later in the day, he would inquire about your whereabouts and appear uneasy. If you go a day without messaging him, Even if you warned him beforehand, he would become anxious. Additionally, there were times I craved some me time. So, we decided to use emojis to communicate. If a specific emoji appeared in my bio, it signified a particular meaning. For example, a yellow heart indicated that I was at school and might not be able to chat. However, I did not consistently follow through with the emoji idea, even though it was my suggestion. Sometimes, I would have a specific emoji to signify that I wanted to be left alone, yet he would still question why he received notifications that I reposted something but had not talked to him. I believe this created some tension. If you are wondering why I did not simply follow through and think I am foolish, I am questioning the same thing right now. I feel like a member of an audience smacking their forehead at my past self for feeling overwhelmed at the thought of adding emojis to a bio. It was our sole idea of how we could help our friendship, and I was exhausted. He was likely feeling the same way. There is so much I want to include in this post, but I am too tired to delve into details. I only intended to rant here and express what happened and how I feel. To summarize what happened this December, we planned to do something for Christmas, like watching a movie. I had much more planned as a surprise for him, including a whole page filled with every day we had talked, played, and laughed. In it, there were going to be songs I wrote for him. I know some might find it embarrassing or cheesy, but I remembered when he told me that his love language was songs that remind him of us. Thus, I wanted to create a song inspired by so many songs about rainbows and base it on our friendship. Another song I intended to write would be about one of his characters, and it would be inspired by Run, Rabbit, Run, as he had connected the character and the song together. With the pressure of composing two songs, lacking access to music technology or any musical experience, I felt extremely stressed. My brother has a guitar, so I aim to learn to play at least one song by Christmas so that I could sing our song to him. I was also preparing for his birthday in January, having designed a maze in a game. He does not like mazes, and we joke about it frequently, so I thought it would be amusing to have him navigate a maze to reach his in-game birthday party filled with references to our memories. For Valentine's Day, I also had additional plans. I constructed a Minecraft world for us that would guide him through a fantasy land in a show we were both working on. Following every path would lead him to a giant heart asking him to be my platonic Valentine. If he said yes, I intended to send him a document of a fake wedding certificate, allowing us to match profile pictures and be declared husband and wife. I would be the husband, laughing out loud. With all these ideas in mind, I was doing my best to finish them quickly, but the stress overwhelmed me, and then came the day my dad and I argued. He came home and snapped at me for no apparent reason, which led to a conflict between us and me in tears. I reached for my phone to tell Simon about it, although he was busy playing with his other friends or possibly sleeping. I can't quite remember. I informed Simon about my father raising his voice over trivial matters, and as I mentioned earlier, it did not feel like his responsibility to handle my issues. Thus, I deleted the chats. The following day, Simon was anxious and concerned about my well-being. He saw the messages and was worried. I told him I was fine, but I think he saw through it. He was unhappy with my inconsistent behavior, and after I apologized, he stated that he did not think we could maintain our friendship. It truly devastated me, and at that moment I was with family, so I felt a sense of internal panic because I did not want to lose him. He mentioned that he felt we might be able to be friends again someday, but just not at that moment. Naturally, I did not want this outcome, but I agreed. I believe I had a panic attack and struggled to breathe, prompting my parents to take me to the hospital for evaluation. During that time, I reached out to Simon because I was frightened. I felt like I had lost him, and now I was at a hospital. What was I going to do? Simon did respond and stayed with me while I was there, and I kept him updated. My dad managed to get me out, but when I returned home, my mom did not allow me to be alone and opted to sleep in my room for safety reasons. However, all I wanted was to have Simon back. I miss my best friend, and it has been 3 months. So much has happened that I know he would be proud of me for accomplishing, but life feels empty without him now, along with the remorse of behaving the way I did and ruining our friendship. We got along so well, and my panic caused him to become anxious and no longer want this friendship. We spent 7 years talking every day, and now I find myself going through each day alone. I suppose this was my quick rant, but I genuinely wish I could redo everything and not have acted the way I did. I did so much more, yet I am mentally and physically too fatigued to even reflect on it. My mom and other adults believed that Simon and I were unhealthy for each other and that it was beneficial for him to leave, but I cherished our daily conversations. They brought me joy, and now, without them, I feel like I am not the same person. Yes, I have improved, healed, learned to be a better friend and communicator, and discovered how to be better not just for myself but for others in the future. 3 months may not seem like enough time, but I have spent 16 hours a day with my thoughts and virtually nothing to do. I have received medical help and shared what happened, and they were able to teach me some things as well. However, with that said, I genuinely wish I could have learned all of this sooner in order to save our friendship. I miss him so much, and it is truly eating me alive. I keep telling everyone that I am fine with or without him, but if I am here writing this, it is clear that I am not. This truly sucks. Story 3. 32F married to 36M for 2 years, together for 3, no sex, both virgins. I told him I was going to see other people, and now I might be falling for someone else. How will this end? I realized early in my marriage that my husband was not interested in sexual intimacy, yet I chose to remain because he treated me well. After several years in a sexless relationship, I sought intimacy elsewhere, with mutual consent, and felt genuinely desired for the first time. Now my marriage feels empty, and even though my husband is eager to improve things, I no longer feel passionate towards him. We have until June to determine our future, considering either an open marriage or annulment, but I feel trapped in either direction because there appears to be no fairy tale ending. I came across another person discussing their sexless marriage, and it struck a chord with me. The difference is that I recognized just 3 months into our relationship that he was disinterested in sex and contemplated breaking up, but he kept assuring me that things would improve. He attributed the situation to stress since I had an accident early in our relationship or to work-related pressures. He was my first boyfriend and genuinely treated me perfectly, maintaining that kindness throughout our time together. At that moment, I did not realize that a lack of sexual interest in a man was an unusual behavior. Regarding the absence of sexual activity, I made attempts to initiate intimacy, but we never engaged in penetrative sex because he struggled with arousal. Although I performed oral sex for him, he refused to reciprocate, claiming it was unclean, which left me feeling frustrated. We sought help from medical professionals and counselors, but nothing changed. We also expressed a desire to have children, and our families blamed me, viewing me as the ambitious, career-driven partner obstructing my husband from fathering children. Eventually, I told his parents we had not consummated the marriage after nearly 3 years, hoping to cease their accusations about my inability to conceive. I also felt utterly broken as a woman due to experiencing rejection and undesirability from my only partner for 3 years. It was not solely about the lack of sex. It included moments like him inviting me to share a shower, only for it to remain purely platonic, where we would relax, chat, and wash each other's backs. It extended to moments when he would turn away while dressing or make eye contact without acknowledging my physical appearance. I could wear something particularly appealing, only to notice every man around me expressing desire except for my husband, who remained focused on his food. I believe I stayed in the marriage this long because of our emotional connection and his care for me, which I reciprocated. Last year, I consulted a therapist who indicated that my husband would likely never match my sexual drive, which was impacting my self-esteem. I informed him that I intended to date other individuals, as I needed to experience sexual intimacy at least once. It was my initial foray into casual encounters, since my husband had been my first kiss and the first to see me undressed. I found it relatively easy to meet men, but it was reminiscent of the Goldilocks tale. Some were poorly scented, others too aggressive, some too passive, too youthful, I am 25, or overly hairy with odd facial hair that made me feel ticklish. Fortunately, all of them were respectful and did not exploit the situation. I ended up becoming intimate with 3 individuals during this period. The first was a 58-year-old European man who was traveling. It was brief, involved quite a bit of blood since I lost my virginity to him, and was enjoyable. It was my first experience with penetration, which brought me happiness because I had previously thought something was wrong with me for being unable to have sex. The second partner was a man around my age whom I met while traveling for work. This experience was emotionally gratifying as he built a foundation of trust with me, accompanied by lingering kisses and gentle touches. He made it clear that he was attracted to my body type, making the encounter enjoyable. However, he later ceased communication, leaving me bewildered, although it became inconsequential once I returned home. The third encounter was with someone who was in my town for work. This experience was the most fulfilling sex I have had. He genuinely liked me. We communicated through text, video calls, and voice calls for a week prior to our meeting. Our chemistry was excellent, and we shared similar fantasies and a strong mental connection. Perhaps it was the anticipation or genuine affection, but our meeting was wonderful. He also ensured he smelled pleasant, knowing my low success rate in previous encounters. That evening, we were intimate 3 times. In the shower, we experimented with different positions, and I felt comfortable trusting him. Aware of my relative inexperience, he allowed me to set the pace while gently encouraging me to explore. He complimented my taste and continued to pursue me. For the first time, I felt like a woman, contrasting with my husband's earlier assertion that I was dirty. The way he regarded me, touched me, and chased me made me feel desired. We met a couple more times, and our connection deepened. We instinctively knew how to please each other in bed without needing to ask. The bond was intense, and he acknowledged it as well. However, I am uncertain about what transpired afterward. Perhaps he hadn't intended to develop feelings, but he began to distance himself, and I allowed him to go. Now, I am left with memories of the joy and fulfillment that sexual intimacy can bring, how he made me feel, and my marriage has never felt emptier. My husband remains hopeful about our future and expresses his willingness to do whatever it takes to meet my needs. Since my exploration, he has been making more effort, but I can't shake the feeling that the opportunity for us has passed due to the trauma I experienced. His touch no longer ignites any warmth or passion in me, nor do I feel passionate towards him. I appreciate his love and willingness to try, but I also do not want him to strain himself or feel inadequate. The right partner for him would be someone who appreciates all he does without requiring sexual intimacy. We have given ourselves until June to make a decision. While I understand we qualify for an annulment, I remain uncertain about the best course of action. Could an open marriage be a viable option? Yet, what if I develop feelings as I did for my third partner? I apologize for oversharing, but I feel this is the only place to express my emotions, and I hoped that individuals with more experience could provide guidance. Please refrain from suggesting that my husband may be gay or asexual. Medical professionals have verified his physical health, so it could merely be an overall lack of interest. Story 4. Dodging a grocery store Karen. I witnessed a stock person harassed for help, only to realize the complaining woman thought I worked there too. With quick thinking, I escaped before she could snap my way. Have you ever evaded a Karen encounter? This is more of a proxy. I do not work here, lady. And a thank you to everyone who shares such lively examples of Karens in the wild. To set the scene, I was recently at a large grocery store that rhymes with flyer. They have exceptionally long grocery aisles that are divided in the center with a perpendicular space for improved flow. I go incredibly early in the morning because the music is played at a softer volume, and the only individuals present in the store are employees stocking the shelves and retirees who wake up before sunrise. Usually, I am happy to assist when asked politely, everything from pulling something heavy into a cart, reaching the top shelf, to even lying on the floor to retrieve glasses that have accidentally been kicked beneath a shelf. The older regulars and I exchange idle pleasantries, and they recognize me as one of the usual people around. I am in the cracker and cookie aisle when a stock employee is pulling a large metal dolly toward the back of the store with a stack of deconstructed boxes piled on top of it. Before she can reach the end of the aisle, 2 mobility scooters round the corner and obstruct her path. This was not accidental. It is evident that the scooters were lined up to intentionally block the entire aisle. It consists of a man and a woman. The man looks down at his phone, attempting to ignore the chaos while the woman smugly crosses her arms. She is the human embodiment of a sour grape. I am towards the front of the aisle, but I can hear this woman declare that since the stock person works there, she must do this woman's shopping for her. She is shaking a paper grocery list at the stock person, and she has the exact same facial expression as the animated image of the angry little girl shaking a hairbrush. The unfortunate stock person is trying to explain that she does not work in customer service and that she is simply there to stock shelves, but the grumpy grape will not accept it. Eventually, the stock person loudly exclaims in frustration, "I do not have time for this," and pushes the dolly backward into the middle aisle gap, circumventing the blockade. This retreat is met with flying obscenities and threats of contacting management, but the stock person moves quickly enough that the scooters cannot reposition in time. I can hear the employee's dolly move down an unblocked aisle and into the back of the store, out of reach. If you thought that was the end of it, dear reader, you are mistaken. The woman then loudly proclaims, "We will just get that other girl to assist us," with an annoyed huff. I almost instantly realize that I am the only person left in the aisle, and I am dressed very similarly to the stock person, jeans and a t-shirt. For the briefest moment, I considered explaining to the woman that I did not work there, as I did have a shopping cart after all. However, the daunting stories from Reddit have taught me that rational explanations often lead to conflict and sometimes even assault. This cantankerous woman could fill a Karen bingo card with her antics. I recognized my immediate danger and quickly moved in the opposite direction, scurrying around the corner before she could even attempt to flag me down with her shopping list. She even tried loudly snapping her fingers as if I were a dog. It was genuinely surprising how loudly she snapped her fingers with her dried-up hands, but that is likely a result of extensive practice from treating people like servants. You may call me inconsiderate for not assisting my elders, but there is no way I am going to involve myself with someone who wants me to gather her groceries while she yells at me. By the time I reached the self-checkout register, only the man was in a scooter, and the woman was bagging and checking groceries on her feet. I make no claims or assumptions about her physical abilities, but I thought it was odd that she abandoned the scooter somewhere instead of having someone scan her groceries for her. Regardless of the time of day, there are always two people assisting at self-checkout, and there is a checkout lane with another employee available. As I passed her register to do my own self-checkout, she gave me a venomous stare, but thankfully, she kept most of the insults under her breath instead of opting for confrontation. So, thank you, Redditors. You taught me how to identify a dangerous Karen in the wild, and I managed to avoid the situation.